I have done some work with non-agricultural water supplies. I do have a cistern that I put in under my greenhouse. It is a 1,500-gallon septic tank that failed its test. It seemed didn't work, so I got it cheap. A roof calculation indicated that on just my roof water would fill that tank from dead empty with 1 inch of rainfall. I have had to modify the system so that it also picks up the drainage water that runs into my driveway, so now it fills up with a 1/2 inch of rainfall. And it overflows and goes on downstream. I've been studying the water system here and thinking that we really need the conservation side and the changing of our watershed. We have a watershed study going on now, and I hope that the conclusions come out that we should increase the storage in the watershed. We've all seen the brown water roaring into the ocean out here. One of the calculations that I like to do is when water is flowing in a stream under non-turbulent flow, it's moving at something in the neighborhood maybe of 5 feet per second as the velocity. If you get a kind of a cross section of the stream, you can figure out about how much water is going out of there. It's easy to see that we're flowing at 1,000 second feet going out of Santa Rosa Creek. 1,000 second feet, 1,000 cubic feet of water per second. If you do some minor arithmetic on that, it turns out to be just a heck of a lot of water that's going out in the ocean. You can kind of multiply second feet times 2 and come up with acre feet per day. That's a lot of water that's flowing out there. We need indeed more storage in the system. I think increasing the roughness of the watershed, small ponds that were not carefully evaluated in the early studies here because they were called cow ponds. The initial analysis by an engineering firm was that we would have to put in a piping system to pipe that water down so that we could have it. I would think that it would percolate into the groundwater. The cows would drink some would evaporate, some would percolate in. It would increase our water supply to all the users in the stream because we'd be storing it up in the headlands. Maybe some of the money that we should be investing should be in purchasing properties in the headlands so that we become landholders up on the watershed and managing our own water supply. Converting it to a conservation easement, adding small ponds to it. There have been a number, ICRISAT, which is one of the agricultural research stations internationally. CIMMYT is one of them in Mexico that has caused the green revolution to come on. ICRISAT is the one in India. And one of their major programs is an integrated use of watersheds. It's a climate much like this, only monsoon instead of Mediterranean. Rain still comes all at one time. They've initiated several small watershed programs where they manage the water in the whole watershed for all of the farmers instead of just the guys who benefit down at the bottom. There's a Don who happened to be an agronomist in the Extremadura in Spain, and he has on his property managed a whole series of small ponds that eventually leak down to the large one that he irrigates from. And it's the only green patch in the middle of the Extremadura. I've seen an operation in Pennsylvania where it's a drought if it doesn't rain next week. And there's a farmer there who was growing commercial tomato crop and needed to irrigate. And he had a series of ponds that fed down to his bottom one, and then he could pump out of that and irrigate during the drought, even if his droughts weren't as long as ours. So I think what Cambria really needs, and what we need to think about, is conservation is starting in the watershed itself, which will maintain stream flows longer, maintain our wildlife, steelhead, some people will catch it. reservoirs offstream, so we have some water. There are some smallish ones in terms of state reservoirs, not big dams, maybe 500 to 1,000 acre feet. Whale Rock, a water exchange program. We have rights on to water in Nacimiento Lake. Paso Robles, Atascadero, San Luis Obispo are building the pipeline. They might want us to throw in a nickel. But we could do an exchange with San Luis Obispo for Whale Rock water. We can't build a pipeline from Nacimiento coming through too much political problems and fault lines. But we could do an exchange with San Luis Obispo for Nacimiento water and bring Whale Rock water up here, up along the Highway 1 right of way. Reasonably. The thing I see in the proposal for, not for desalination, but for investigating the hydrogeology of extracting seawater for Santa Rosa Creek. The plan I saw what they want to do on our parkland out here indicates an awful lot of digging and pipelines out there on that little estuary where Santa Rosa Creek comes out. I think it's an industrialization of a recreational resource. And if we do have water that we can extract, where are we going to pump it to? The design calls for 1,850 gallons per minute of extracted water. That's at a minimum a 14-inch pipeline. And that's running at almost 5 linear feet a second, get that much water through. It's a heck of a big pump to suck on a lot of water. Or you're going to have to put a pump out here to actually to move it. And this design they were talking about was taking the treated wastewater and combining it with the brine system, the return flow. This is not a very big strip of land, and they're going to return that brine flow somewhere and suck water out. It's kind of like, that sounds like recycling. Not on purpose. So I think that we should be considering other options and they should include all of those: gray water, conservation. But I really think the work we should be doing is figuring out how to cooperate with our neighbors that own the upper parts of the watershed, and it will benefit them and us. I was pushing the low-tech approach, and I talked to my neighbor who is a retired arms dealer, and showing him my new gift that my son had just brought. This is an official Gurkha knife from the Gurkhas in the Army for the Indians. And Bill told me I should bring this here just to demonstrate that, you know, low technology really still is functional. This has been working for centuries, and it still does.